Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by BB. There is no second best live YouTube stream to talk about markets. Welcome back, everybody. I hope we have all had a wonderful holidays. I'll probably get some flack from from the Euros in the chat that it was not holiday, but I hope that you at the very least had a great last few days, a great weekend with friends and family. We are back to cook for you guys some delicious alpha and have a great show. Welcome. I'm Snorlax. You also know me as Tommy. I'm joined by Max, Big Louie, Prometheus, and of course, moisturized Czech Brady, aka Jackus. Jackus is the nickname. The moisturized Czech Brady is his real name, if you weren't aware. But before we can start talking about the markets, guys, before we can kind of dissect obviously this weekly open sell-off that we've had in crypto, we've got more yen carry trade fears. Of course, equities are barely red despite all of this. You know the drill at this point. I'm going to ask if you guys can hit the like button for us. Let's run it up. Are you in the Christmas spirit? Are you in the mood to gift us some likes on Cyber Monday? We're happy that you're here regardless. We're going to try to run the like button up, but we will be cooking for you guys today. It is Monday after all. And as I like to say, on Mondays, we typically tend to have a little bit more on our mind, especially after, we weren't live on Thursday or Friday. So let's get into it. Like I said, Bitcoin really like right off the weekly open went pretty much straight down. We had a squeeze on kind of like holiday liquidity on Thursday and Friday, and even over the weekend, we were kind of just chopping and doing nothing. Obviously, that has retraced since. I think we're trading kind of below where we were on Thursday or Friday. It is the first day of December, right? So we don't want to overreact too much to one candle. Are we about to see a range form on Bitcoin kind of within the last like 2 weeks of price action, or are we about to see Bitcoin potentially accelerate as far as the sell-off goes? We're going to talk about it on today's show. I mean, we are seeing, I wouldn't say we're seeing like weakness in equities. It looks a lot like it did, I think, a few weeks ago before it ultimately went to new highs, but it continues, I think, to show a little bit more, like it's a little bit more lethargic up here than it was maybe 2 or 3 months ago when you were really just like having no dips at all, straight up in a straight line. What's occurring here, right? Is this kind of the VIX potentially bottoming? Is this, maybe some individual names seeing some weakness like NVIDIA? Again, things we're going to discuss on today's call. And of course, we have to bring up the Japanese bonds, guys. Everybody loves to talk about the Japanese bonds. Most of the time when we talk about Japanese bonds, I would say the Nikkei is making a new high within a few days. So maybe this time is not different. But when we talk about the yen carry trade, it obviously has these direct correlations and implications for global liquidity, which has a direct implication on things like market volatility. So there is potential for downside here, right? If the situation with Japanese bonds, because I don't even think you can pull up the 2-year bond yield for Japan on TradingView anyway. I was trying to do it yesterday. I couldn't find the ticker. So maybe we don't look at that chart specifically, but I'm sure we'll talk about the implications, of course. It's worth paying attention to, especially as far as, crypto goes. But how are we doing, guys? What are we thinking about the markets? How was our holiday? What do we think about the fact that Bitcoin puked right off the weekly open? Do we have, anything that's really just picking on our brain right now? What are we seeing in the markets? Sorry.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thanksgiving was nice. Ate a lot of food. Got to see both sides of the family. That was nice. Things are good. Went to the Timberwolves game last night. That was cool. Wolves won, lost both parlays. That sucked, but other than that, things were great. Eventful start to December, right? I mean, kind of right as we're transitioning, from the end of November into December on UTC time. Just big dumperoni. Look, here's the thing, like, we got a lot of time left in December, but I also think this is more just like high time frame trend continuation. You know, we had a brief pause, the momentum oscillators kind of reset, right? You know, so we nuked, we saw daily RSI down at what did it hit? Like 23 or 24? Really low, right? Really low daily RSI, where we know that we typically, there's like a threshold to what is theoretically possible, you know? I guess technically it could go to zero, but based on reasonable, normally distributed data, it's like you typically kind of get some relief bounces, even just for a brief technical moment in time from sub 25K, or I'm sorry, not 25K, sub 25 on RSI daily time frame. So what worries me a little is like, we kind of just had a dead cat bounce is what we had. Can we move up in December? It's possible, but look at the trend. I mean, it's lower highs, lower lows on a higher time frame, you know, not exactly instilling the most amount of confidence in me. But for me, it's a strong convictions held loosely type of thing. I'm just going to be waiting and watching. If we can get some structural shifts, then maybe we get some bull action. But I'm not really feeling motivated to fight this trend here. I mean, this is a pretty strong trend. I don't really want to swim upstream too much here. I'm fine holding some bags and, we'll wait for him to come back. But, I am playing some downside because we're in a downtrend. So, yeah, just, I think either you need to see Bitcoin starting to move up really more towards like 100K, which I know we're far off of that at this point. Or you need to see a quick flush down to like upper 60s, like take out those April lows from this year, liquidate everybody. Everyone's going to be feeling terrible about the market. And then I think if we can get that major capitulation event, like into that blue box that Louis has, I think at that point, you're going to see a lot of people really take a good hard look at it and go, yeah, this is pretty good value. Even if we don't go on to make a new all-time high from here, which I think we'll just talk about that later when the time comes, there's probably a bounce from 70K to 100 that would occur. There's still value to be had in a play like that. But I think bouncing from here is where are you bouncing from? Like what's happening here? You're not at like value, you're kind of just almost breaking down, but haven't quite broken down yet. I think the path of least pain is a nuke down to like, just below the April low, wherever that would be. I think that would actually be the path of the least amount of pain. I think the path of the most amount of pain is like 3 or 4 months of chop and distribution into a shoulder right here, right? I think that would be painful. I think you want to see this thing nuke and then recover quickly, but it's not up to me. So just watching, strong convictions held loosely as of now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that the faster this happens, the better for the recovery. Obviously, nobody's out of us is in control of the market, so the bounce here is still possible. But I would also prefer if the market just kind of nukes down the April low. Everyone saw probably by now the 2021 fractal with the big bounce. I don't think we get I think we can bounce, but I don't think we get like a 3 to 4 months bounce, go to like 105, 100K again, and then big bear market. So the sooner it happens, the better. And then I raised the question, how will people look back on this? Will they let's hypothetically assume that we dump straight to April lows pretty much in in December, let's say, or maybe like at max in January, right? How will people look back? Will they view this as a bear market for BTC? Was this just a black swan, right? Because it was kind of like, up, then one like down, wipe out, and then back up. Imagine if that happened. How would you define the current drop? Except like butt fuckery, right? But
You took the words out of my mouth. I mean, that's exactly what it is. So
Please, Mr. President, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I think the faster this happens, the better. We do not want something like this, right? We do not want a multi-month shoulder fake out. I think if that's the case, it's just going to elongate it into something like this, and you do not want this, right? Everyone wants the bounce right now. I get it. We've seen a little bit of a bounce. Most people likely want the bounce to try to get out of some positions that they're still sitting in. But I agree. I mean, if we do something like this and do see a sustained sort of bounce or some lower time frame structure that looks promising, I think it leads to longer period of time of down and accumulation versus if we do get this rip the Band-Aid off move here, which is another swoosh down into this area. I have this X here. Right now, kind of Max was like, where are we? Right now, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, right? Yeah, sure. You could say we have a little bit of market structure here. We talked about this last week. After the, this is the weekly market structure break here. That's very significant. We have this uptrend break. That's significant. After a significant breakdown like this, I don't think you stop here, right? I don't think you stop here unless it's for a complacent shoulder bounce for lower. But if we do get the swoosh, right, we do get that second kind of move down, which would, I think, is highly dependable on equities, right? I'm looking for some sort of top in equities here. If we get that, I think there's a much more likely scenario where we could make a sizable move out of that drop. Because if we are dropping like this, right, this quick, this fast, again, more drop, equities are obviously probably puking. Something maybe breaks in the economy. I feel like it would be met with some sort of favorable outcome out of the Fed, whether that's, cutting more rates, maybe printing money. Not that I, think that's the right thing to do. I just think that's probably what's likely going to happen. But I think we need more downside first, right? So if we get that swoosh, continued downside, the quicker the better. I think there's a very, very more likely scenario coming out of that where you could have tons and tons of altcoins, Bitcoin, ETH at value prices worth buying and playing for bigger swings back to the upside that will be sustained for a while versus just a little half-assed complacent shoulder here. So I totally agree. I'm in the same camp as the rest of the analysts up here. I'm just looking for this to happen quick. Let's get long again. I want to start looking for meat ticks again. No sus. But right now I can't.
Should I do it? Okay, I'm going to come in and wreck the party. I think what everybody is not realizing, I mean, we all realize it, but what a lot of people don't realize is equity indices are still at all-time highs. And what happens if they roll over in a big way from here with crypto already as weak as it is and liquidity as dry as it is? And arguably, we haven't seen, besides the FTX, capitulatory lows, liquidity right now is arguably thinner than it was in the downtrend that we saw in 22. And if we think that liquidity is thinner than it is in 22, or we know it's thinner than it is in 22, then a V recovery, in my opinion, is almost most certainly off the table. To sustain value in a big way, you need meaningful liquidity to be injected back within the system. And I think that has to happen from a monetary stance from the Fed at this point, right? And if you just look at the current conditions of where this market is at, in no way, in my opinion, can you really expect a V recovery out of any region. I think from a prolonged retracement perspective and with how much we're seeing, with how weak we're seeing crypto as it is right now, I think it makes sense that, it's going to take a very, very, very prolonged period to come out of this sell-off, whether people, would like it or not. I know, if outside of direct intervention, I think it's going to take a long time to come out of, whatever bear market we're coming into, right? And so I think that's your caveat, is if you get intervention by the Fed, sure. But if not, if it's just structural, we're going to be finding value at a lot lower prices, and it's going to take a long time for liquidity to come back into this market with how much dispersion we've had thus far.
Well, from my point of view, we've been in a bear market ever since we lost 100K. So I think it really depends, like how you look at it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. If there's no intervention and everything I said happens and we don't get that intervention, I don't see a V-shaped recovery out of it, right? So it's kind of like we need all of the stars to align for sure, right? But we've seen historically that's what occurs. What I would say to kind of counter argument that, Prometheus, is this, right? So that's always a big argument, is just imagine what's going to happen to Bitcoin and altcoins if equities do finally decide to drop. We've seen instances where Bitcoin and altcoins tend to lead these drops. So, back in January, Bitcoin topped in January 2022. S&P didn't top until late February. Sure, we saw some continued sell-off once the S&P started to roll. But I would say the biggest and most vicious part of this drop we saw middle of this year, where equity, like something like the S&P dropping 16%, which is very significant in pretty much less than a month time. You would think Bitcoin had a bigger drop. But in reality, because Bitcoin did front run, from the time where equities dropped 16.5%, you only saw Bitcoin drop another 3% from where it made its low, right? So that argument makes sense, and I totally get it and understand it, and it totally could be correct. But my argument is, in this example alone, you saw a 17% drop almost in the S&P in a month, and then Bitcoin kind of just retraced to the lows and then led out of the bottom, right? So I think a lot of the downside, more so in altcoins, because they've been getting beat up for years, right? It's not like altcoins had a bull market. They're coming off, massive rallies and inflated prices. Altcoins have been getting beaten up for years at this point. Bitcoin had a nice rally, but has also been front running this top out of equities, which I think is the case. If we do see a drop out of equities, yeah, we talked about lower prices on Bitcoin, but not as far as many would think, right? And I think this is a good example to kind of counter argue that. We're like, yeah, S&Ps can drop viciously and hard. Doesn't necessarily mean we need to see Bitcoin and altcoins drop that much harder. Although I'm looking for drops, I think it can be lower and quicker than most expect if we do get the puke.
There's also another good example of what you're showing here, Louis. It was in October of 2023, I think. Yeah, right in there. So see that big pullback for equities from like August, September, October? See that?
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly that. I remember that one well because like our team at the time was together. I think we were in Kansas City all hanging out, and I remember talking about how cooked equities looked at that time. And we're like, shit, is crypto about to roll over and like really put in a drop because equities are puking? And that it just didn't. It kind of front ran all of it. So, I mean, it's one of those, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't exactly feel the most confident, proclaiming that like the crypto weakness is already priced in, like we will survive any equity drop. But there are instances of that happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm still looking for downside in crypto. I think we have a plunge left to go, and that's going to obviously affect altcoins. But I think if we do get the perfect scenario, which is not something you should bank on, right? And it's something you want to see proof of first or inklings. I've just seen time and time again, it's that argument. Oh, just imagine when the larger indices drop, these things are going to drop more. Yes, but they've also been dropping for years and months already, So I don't know. That's just how I'm looking at it. If we see something crazy break and then no one steps in, yeah, I mean, we're cooked for a while, and that's still always on the table.
So
I
you're
think
saying
this
we're
market's
cooked,
kind of
Louis.
cooked. I think this market's cooked regardless. I mean, we've had indices be completely flat, and I mean, crypto's down. I mean, Bitcoin's down off the highs? We're down 35%. I mean, yeah, I like your point, Louis, and Max as well. And we saw a similar period in October of 22 where we saw a little bit of divergence between price and the indices in Bitcoin. We'll see what happens. It's I just know that in the meantime, the trend is right to the downside, and I don't want to be getting carried away trying to front run a bottom in crypto if the high time frame trend is to the downside, and if equities are maybe, even if they have a catch up trade, I want to see structure form. I think that's the most important thing before you really get in front of this train. It's because it's not a train, it's a bullet train. Like, this thing's going 400 miles an hour in one direction, and there is no stopping it.
I'm not really ready to play downside on equities, but I am with crypto. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Like, I'm looking at the US indexes right now, and I think there's a downside brewing. Like, I think there is something brewing, and it can change overnight. But right now, the technicals are telling me that we're not quite ready to play big downside in US equities. And I think those that are too eager to do that, people don't realize how stubborn the stock market is. Furthermore, people don't truly understand how manipulated this thing is. Crypto nukes hard because it's truly a free market. Like, it's a free market just riddled with criminals, right? There's nobody there to save crypto ever. Furthermore, all that there is people that just like panic and be selfish and like, we are not all in this together. Me and my funds are getting out. Like, that's crypto. Equities is like, we're all in this together. Politicians, billionaires, pensions, everybody. They're all in this Ponzi together. Keep the thing going as long as possible. You have to be a lot more patient playing downside on equities. A lot more patient. So even if like the crypto top, quote unquote, isn't like the cycle top, look at last cycle, how long it took for equities to roll over compared to Bitcoin. Look at that. The real signal is being patient with equities, gauging the magnitude of the downside with what Bitcoin and crypto does, and then hammering some puts when you're patient and you get the right setup. But first, they're going to just destroy everybody, and they're not going to let it break down. I think you got to be patient with equity downside.
I agree for indices. I think for individual names, you can be a little bit more aggressive here. Like, I think Tesla looks awful. But yeah, I mean, broader indices, yeah, it's just the passive flow regime is just pumping. It's
pumping.
You can't. Yeah, it's incredible. Volatility structure, though, to me, especially zoomed out on the higher time frame, so in that higher time frame uptrend is just screaming to me that like there is something awry in the bedrock of the markets right now, and something is a brewing. And some might say mega quakes.
I think someone once said, "Don't get bullish before the VIX blowout Anon." I can't remember who it was.
Who said that?
Someone said that, dude. I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue. He's a big fat Pokemon. I can't remember who he is. But
I do feel that way, and I think you guys have all kind of brought up some very salient points around like market timing, because we've seen, I think, multiple times where crypto largely front ran equity downside. And obviously timing downside on stocks when you have it basically have indices dragged up by 7 stocks, and they can rotate capital and they can keep the Ponzi going for a very long period of time. So it's very difficult to get that timing right. I think what we're going to see is that crypto moved first, and then eventually everything is going to move together, and equities are probably going to do what they did. Maybe not in like April of this year. Crypto had mostly already bottomed by then. But what we have seen in the past instances is crypto shows that weakness, equities remain resilient, and then they capitulate together and they bottom together. And I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know if I'd quite use the term like V recovery, but I do think that a prolonged bear market at this point is unironically a national security issue. And thus, I don't think that we're going to have like a multi-year period where stocks just go down or sideways. I think the recovery will probably fall like somewhere in between a V recovery and a bear market, right? I think that's at least kind of how I'm viewing it personally. But yeah, I mean, we've got all of these risks to market liquidity, I think, all converging at once. And they've kind of all popped up in like individual spurts, specifically for crypto throughout the cycle, right? Like you have the yen carry trade, you've had volatility blowouts, you've had Michael Saylor FUD, you've had all this other FUD throughout the space. But now I think we're kind of in this position where that maybe the noose is tightening a little bit, and you're seeing it tighten around crypto's neck the quickest because it's the more liquidity sensitive sector of the market. But it usually means that equities are not far behind. And so what I think is going to happen is at some point we're going to get a VIX blowout, and you're going to see equities catch up to crypto, probably all at the same time. And at least I know we saw this in 2020. Bitcoin and crypto sold, like in March of 2020, Bitcoin and crypto sold off. I think starting in mid-February and into mid-March, they formed a shoulder, and then equities made a higher high. Equities made a higher high, and then everything capitulated together into the end of March.
When you spoken about, you spoke about something like capital concentration or something. Only 37% of companies are outperforming the S&P 500, which is one of the lowest numbers in like 25 years, which is crazy.
We've got a technocratic oligarchy.
Very much.
And if you look back, Jack, as to I believe it's the 80s where you had the blue chip madness, very, very, very similar from a structural standpoint in how the S&P is behaving now versus then.
Mm-hmm.
What is the equal weighted S&P
It's like somebody
look
was
like?
pulling that fractal.
Is that RSR or whatever? Can you look at RSR?
Is that like a ticker?
Yeah, it should be or maybe it's RSP. Yeah, try RSP. It's the equal weighted S&P 500, whatever, RSP.
Invesco
Yeah.
S&P.
So this is where they're all weighted equally instead of having like a handful of companies represent like the entire, economy.
Let me go to the weekly.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's only up 17% since its Jan 22 highs.
Yeah, this looks sketchy.
It paints a different picture for sure.
Isn't like the Mag 7 like make up like 33 to 40% of the S&P or the
It's
Nasdaq?
something like that. Yeah, it's
Nvidia alone is 10%.
That's why we can see a vicious drop out of the S&P. It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is interesting. This looks
looks a lot different.
Yeah.
It almost looks like it looks like the Nasdaq and IWM had like a baby or something. When I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Also, an interesting chart is if you're gonna type SPX and divide it by Euro USD. You get it? Yeah. And so
Ugh, what is that ugly looking thing? Look at that
So-
Bart from the high.
So S&P in real terms just barely, is trading at the, at the Q1 highs. And if you're gonna look at, for example, the 2022 bear market, you'll realize it has been mainly by the dollar strengths rather than, like the value of things.
So what is this representing, Jackus?
It's basically telling you the value of SPX in euro, but
Right.
I believe it's not. It's kind of interesting way to look at things. You can measure SPX against silver, against gold. You get an idea of value because in a world full of fiat currencies, when someone decides to do like the biggest quantitative easing or tightening in history, things can get skewed for a year on certain metrics. So to get an idea, it doesn't hurt to look at different stuff and get an idea. For example, I like SPX versus US CPI during the 70s, right? Like lots of people said that was a period of stagflation, and it was obviously. But in real terms, it was actually a period of like a huge bear market that lasted 26 years.
Right. Max, what was that chart you used to look at? Was it like Bitcoin valued in like against the money supply, or like it took out inflation? Wasn't there a chart you used
There's
to
a
have?
couple. You can do Bitcoin divided by M1SL, Bitcoin divided by M2SL, or you could do Bitcoin divided by USIRRY, which is like the inflation rate.
Yeah.
There's a
Sure.
few of them.
Mm.
I don't know which one, but I cycle through them periodically. But we could look at Bitcoin divided by M1SL. I feel like that might paint an interesting picture right now, but I haven't looked at it in a while.
Maybe very ugly picture.
Does it? You've probably looked at it, Jackus. You always watch that one too.
Divided by
I watch all of
M1.
them.
M1SL. Yeah, and then just return. I think you put a space. Oh, there you go. You got it.
yeah. So
Yeah,
like,
that's a horrific looking chart. If you draw a line, yeah. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
this you know what this looks like the total crypto market cap chart, which I don't know what that means, but it looks like it. But yeah, I mean, it looks like we're coming down into here at a minimum,
Kind of looks like XRP too.
Yeah,
Have you seen Bitcoin versus silver?
I don't want.
No.
Put it on.
It's like the meme. It's like, don't make me look. Look at it.
The Bird Box meme.
No, it's always
Yeah.
like they're holding the.
I know.
Is
I know
that what
which
that
one
movie
you
is?
mean.
They're holding like the lady's eyes open.
Oh my.
Sheesh.
Dude, what is that?
Bear market close.
Wait. That's Bitcoin divided by what?
Silver.
Silver.
Oh,
Oh, coming
Dude.
back down into the CME gap
dude,
at
that
$10.
looks like MSTR for a second, just like the right
Yeah.
side of it.
Mm.
I thought that's what you were looking at for just a second. Man.
If we do see equities pull back, we see a deeper pullback in Bitcoin and crypto, do we think that leads to a larger move up for precious metals?
Not necessarily.
I think eventually, yes.
Yeah.
Sheesh. Look at this chart. Log here.
As I was saying, this is a decade of commodities, but I was hoping that Bitcoin as the digital commodity would keep up. But
Yeah.
right now,
hmm
I agree. I mean, I played silver They played gold, got out too early, obviously, and I also expected, Bitcoin and ETH to kind of and altcoins to follow that as well. Obviously, Bitcoin did a little bit, but even Bitcoin's been getting outperformed by gold and silver. And I think Bitcoin and silver breaking out, like that's also not a good sign for equities either, right? Like,
well, and if you look at like healthcare and defensives are getting bid heavily right now.
Right. Yeah.
That is a flight to safety if you've ever seen one. Like if you look up XLV, which is the healthcare spider fund. Yeah, you're seeing, a big rotation out of risk. You just go and, you could look at like Bitcoin miners. You could look at any of the crypto proxies. You can look at like Rivian. Yeah, just a big rotation of capital right now to safety. Oh, I thought my buys were so good at 110.
I took a shot up here, but I knew very quickly if this didn't hold, it was we're going to see this. And like, if you lose this, which I'll be looking to play a deviation of this IPO price.
Look at
I don't like where does it go from here? If it doesn't do this, like where's the floor?
If you look at it versus like Coinbase, on Coinbase's from its IPO highs went down, I think 90%. So for Circle, that would bring it down to like $32 a share. It does something similarly.
It kind of looks like Coinbase after the IPO a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it pumped though,
No. Take it from the highs. There you go.
2%. All right, so let's measure that on Circle.
Yeah, I think it's like $32 a share or something like that, which would be such great buys if you get that.
Yeah, it's around that $30 area.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing with that chart. I remember months ago, somebody in our Discord was asking us, they're asking me, they're like, what do you think about Circle here? Is that like, is in that gray box that Louis has? I said, here's the trick with this chart. Do me a favor, Louis, just zoom out on the y-axis so there's plenty of room down below. I said to them, what this chart really looks like is like if there was a parabola up from the bottom left corner and the IPO was essentially the blow off top. Can you just with your mouse, Louis, just freehand draw a parabola from the bottom left? No. So starting down in the bottom left corner and then connecting with the IPO candle. Yeah, like that. You don't have to go all the way through it. You can just stop it.
Let me see if I can do a better one. I could use the tool. Where is it?
And then stop it. No. So then stop it at the IPO candle. The first tick right there. Yeah. So that's what the chart really looks like. And what you had in that gray box was the shoulder. And now this is like a bear market breakdown. Okay. So you don't see that part of the chart because all that was private, right? But they IPO it and it's a blow off top into mania. And now you're about to see, all the people that got in before the public launch selling into the shoulder and the pump. And we're going to do that. And then we'll form a bear market. I don't know where it goes, but I'm saying the trickery here, and this happens with look at Coinbase's chart, look at Robinhood's chart. They all do the same thing, right? When they IPO, you miss the parabola. The parabola happens in like the private run up of these companies. You get to buy it at the pico top of hype and mania. You miss the parabola. You don't get to see it, but that's what the chart really looks like. But even zoom out more, Louis. Zoom way out. Draw that line down there to 0. Okay, that's where they all got in, right? Yeah. Think of that visual. They all got in down there, okay? That's what the chart really looks like, but that all happened before it was public, so you don't get to see it. Same thing.
That's such a good point, Max.
What'd you say?
Such a good point. Oh, it's such a good point you made. Like so many people don't realize that.
They don't. So they see these hot IPOs and it's like, you're literally you're getting the opportunity to shove at the mania phase. When everybody that got in before there was a chart gets to dump on you. They already hit 100x. They can finally sell it. You know? Dude, you're getting scammed. You're getting dumped on. Like, that's what the chart really looks like. Imagine if like if you could make a chart of a private company. You know, think about Coinbase, think about Hood, think about Circle, these companies, think about what their chart would look like going back, 5 years before their IPO, right? It'd be a parabola from 0 to, multiple billions. That's what the chart really looks like. You just can't see it, so you have to visualize it. But if you were to take the 2017 parabola from Bitcoin and fractal it and put it on this chart, like, that's what you get to trade here, Like, that's exactly what you get to trade. I might even do it. I want to show you guys like how I like literally view this here. Let me just Tommy this and then I'll give it back, okay?
I think lots of crypto projects are pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think they are too. Monad? Maybe.
Maybe
Like, this is how.
with regards to Circle or Coinbase, I don't think investors at the before the IPO got in at like 0 or close to it. Like, I think the valuations were higher, but the truth is likely somewhere in the middle, right? So like Coinbase launched at like 380, so I don't think investors got in at like 0, but they probably got in around the bear market lows, which is around like 40, in my opinion.
This is what the Coinbase chart actually looks like, but it was not publicly traded at the time, right? All the people that got in as investors, as angel investors, got in here, run up, public listing, parabola breaks down, right? This is what their company like growth chart, their revenue chart actually looks like. You just don't get to see it. It's the same thing with Hood, right? Seed rounds, angel investors, Silicon Valley, they all get to buy in at 30-cent shares down here, right? Parabola, blow off top, the parabola breaks. This is what their chart actually looks like. You just don't get to see that. This is why I don't buy IPOs. Like, this is exactly what happens every time, right? Circle. Look, I even have the drawings on here from whoever it was asking me about it. I can't remember. I said to them, I drew it this way. I drew this shoulder and I was like, it's like, yeah, like, this is your shoulder. Like, this is your parabola. Like, this is what their chart actually looks like. You're finally getting to trade it up here. You couldn't buy it down here, right? So that's how I view these like crypto IPOs. Like, will they pump again? Will they have another parabola? Yeah, but like, it's a mind game. Like, it's smoke and mirrors, like, you think you're buying like a fresh chart and it's like, no, you're buying like a 5 to 10-year-old chart, finally getting the opportunity to buy it, but you're cooked because like everybody else that got these huge allocations 5 years ago got shares at $1 and it's IPOing at 90. You're selling into like literally the company mania phase. You just don't get to see the full chart. But if the chart looked like this and you were barred from buying it this whole way up, and then suddenly they're like, all right, you can buy it here. You'd be like, fuck you. I'm not buying that. No, are you kidding me? I got to watch it run up, but I couldn't trade it down here. You'd be angry. You'd be like, how dare you offer it to me now? Like, look at what the chart looks like. I wanted to buy it down here. You wouldn't let me. Now suddenly you let me buy it here, and people are like, oh, I'm happy to participate in the IPO, and like, oh, like all this new L1 launched. I'm like so excited to just like shove money at the next Ethereum killer. And it's like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, in which world do people run up their money 500x over a few years and don't just dump on the IPO? That happens every time. Anyways.
She didn't even say thank you,
Max. IPOs or these, seed deal shit for that reason. If they
By the
offered
way,
it to me early, I would do it.
by the way, since you used the Bitcoin fractal, like you could see the chart back then on Bitcoin, and still people were aping the top of the parabola because it was like, like at the time it felt like, hey, BTC is taking over the world. Like as John McAfee said, pullbacks are mathematically impossible in this new paradigm. And like people were like, what the fuck? Like, is Bitcoin becoming the new standard? What am I missing? I need to get in. And like, the chart isn't parabola. The thing is, right? Maybe I can steal the chart here slightly, and we touched upon this a few times before. It was in a parabola many times during that phase. Like when you go back to like people will obviously see this chart and be like, yeah, of course this was a parabola. But that's because people didn't go through it live. And that's what distinguishes, all of these, where like there are always arguments for higher or lower, and you need to see the signs in the chart. Because if you went through this chart from the lows, and then the market pumps like this, right here, it is clear you're in a parabola, right? It is absolutely clear you're in a parabola. Everyone's telling you that this is a clear cycle top. You're up 1,700%, clear parabola. And it's like, would you not buy here, right? You wouldn't. And guess what? If you bought here, the next bear market bottom was higher than this price. So like, it's a question. I obviously wouldn't be buying like 20K, but I'm just saying that it's different when we see these things in hindsight versus when they happen in real time. And so you felt like this before, right? Like, oh, I'm not buying into this parabola, and then the market did this, and then the market looks like this, and you're like, oh my god, I could have bought in, and now the price is higher, and then it keeps doing this, and you're like, what if it like does it again, or like, So I mean, the market, even here, right? Like it went through a parabola, and then it kind of went even higher again and again. Next bear market lows. So just putting a little bit notes there.
How it goes.
How it goes.
Anyone want to?
You're only as good. Well, you're not. People just make up stuff. What is Mare? Nice to see some haters in the comments.
Man, I had a hater in my comments yesterday. It was so funny. They never followed me, never interacted with my profile before. And then they were like, it's funny that you're now just getting bearish after a 35% move down. And then I'm like, I can't even believe I responded to him, but I did. And I was like, yeah, I've been bearish for like over 2 months. And he went further back than 2 months. He went like 3.5 months back and found a really like obscure old tweet that ended up playing out like to perfection anyway. But yeah, man, you just can't please the haters. At the end of the day, they're gonna write their own fanfic about you.
Indeed, it's just so hard. It's so hard to like know which people like mean it seriously or are like interested in like logical discussion, whatever, like is it a guy from your community like genuinely asking, or is it a hater sometimes, right? And it's like, especially over the text, like you never know. And then you can like, if you don't respond to these, then you're like, your community be like, oh, I asked you so many times and you never responded to me, you just ignore me, right? Like Big Sal, basically.
Whoa,
you
whoa,
guys
whoa, whoa!
always
You're
ignoring
talking
my
about a
comments.
legend, bro. Easy, Jackus.
Why are you
Where did
just
Big Sal
not looking
go?
at my charts? And it's
Dude,
like, yeah,
Don't bring Big Sal into this. He's the best investor in the. He's Tiger Woods in the early 2000s, bro. I mean, he's MJ in the late 90s. He's Ronaldo and Messi together. I mean, he's everybody. Like, he's the great. He's Wayne Gretzky, you know? Yeah, bite your tongue, Jackus. Bite your tongue. Yeah, show respect to Big Sal.
Big Sal. Well, so why should I ban this guy? Like, it's someone that just trying to like he's probably feeling pain, and he's
Oh.
trying to inflict it onto other people to like
Jackus,
feel the pain with them.
here's the thing you're missing, okay? I instant block, okay? Like, I am trigger happy on the block button. All right. Some people probably get blocked and they're like, what did I even do? It is what it is. Here's the thing. I'm not here to receive your criticism. I'm here to share my thoughts and for you to share your respectful differing opinions if you have any. But if you ever comment anything that's just like out of pocket or like weirdly personal, or just like completely off the mark and unfair, right? If you just come in and like criticize me and you're just completely off base, you just immediately get blocked. Like immediately. I'm like, I don't need to see that. I don't want, like, you don't have a right to just do that, right? Like on Twitter, you think that you have a right to just like say whatever you want, but like I give this example all the time. It's like if I owned a restaurant and like you would just come in and start like screaming at my staff, like I would call the police on you, but like on Twitter, it's just like I have my business on there. My business is like my ideas, your guys' ideas, our company together. But people get to come into our shop and just like disparage the workers and like curse out our families, like no, you immediately get blocked, like instant block, bro. Fuck them. I'm not putting up with that. Like, absolutely not, bro. I'm not here so you can be neurotic on the internet at me. Block immediately. You should be in an insane asylum. If this was in real life, you'd either get your ass beat or end up in the back of a squad car. Like, you can't just act like that. You get blocked immediately. Immediately. Like, dude, you've no right to just say those things. Go say them elsewhere. You know what I mean?
I mean, if people like, show up in the comments and call us or anyone like a retard or something, just fair, like, yeah, that's a block, right? Like you.
Someone has bots to call us that.
But like if someone is just like, like making up stuff, right? It's just like whatever.
I don't even care, because here's the thing is like it only hurts when it's like true, but it's usually never true, right? It's like they make up these imaginary versions of you, in their head, and then they like attack that fake version of you. I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. That's so true. Like they make a fake version of people
Yeah.
of what they like want. I do not know, but they make fake, like you describe it perfectly. They make a fake versions of people what they think they are, and then they attack those fake versions.
Dude, I mean, it's
Make
like
them
they
feel
come at
better.
your neck. Like, we don't even need to get into this because it's just like it's just stupid. But like, dude, the other day some guy was just like, dude, like once again, you are like so off base with your post or something like that. And I was like, bro, I've been shorting the piss out of this market for the past 45 days publicly. Go watch my early November YouTube videos, like spoon serving up my IBIT plays that printed a 6x. What are you talking about? Like, who is this imaginary character in your mind that you created that's been like longing on leverage every dip for the past 30 days when it's been the opposite? Like, it's crazy, bro. It's delusion, It's so weird. All right, let's not even talk about this. This is a good comment. because it doesn't matter, bro. Like who cares, bro? They're gonna hate anyways. Like, they either tune in or they don't. They're just weirdos. Just so weird.
I mean,
Oops.
also like this comment, like we are talking about the markets here every single day for like hour and a half. Oh my god, they dare to talk about like football or the comments or anything apart from the markets for like 10 minutes. How dare they?
It's a
like,
free show. Sometimes you get side commentary.
It's a lifestyle show, guys.
It's a free show. We're just debating.
We talk about horse
Having
burgers.
fun.
It is what it is. Talk about horse burgers. Oh,
Like
you want us to talk
that's
about burgers?
that's also, by the way, the spirit of the show. It's like you never know where it will take you. Like sometimes Big Sal joins in, right? Smokes a cigar. Sometimes it's someone else from the comments that joins in. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's entertaining. Sometimes you get alpha at the end. Sometimes you get it at the beginning. Like each show is unique. That's what makes them live.
It's a great point. Ooh, Zcash. I'm just saying, I remember looking at Zcash. People in the comments were talking about it. Some people in our Discord were talking about it. And then Bitcoin was looking awfully distributive about 45 days ago. And then we overlaid the Zcash chart. And I said, look what happens every time Zcash pumps. What happens to crypto after? What's happening to crypto after Zcash pumped?
I was just too early to my Zcash shorts, man. I have this habit of just being a little too early, man.
And I was so spot on. I just didn't take them.
Happens, brother. We watched the car crash from the sidelines.
No. You're not cooked. You're not cooked. You just need to pivot and play some downside and wait for the market to chill out and form a base. It's like literally that simple. You can keep some bags, because anything can happen. Pick up some, hold the beta you're comfortable with that you think will come back, and then just hammer shorts until the market, finds a bottom. Like we're downtrending. Play downside. You're not cooked. Here's the problem I think that a lot of people face with markets is like they view it as like there's a start date and an end date, and it's like, what am I trying to say? Okay, they will be like, oh, you lost, right? And it's like, no, like I took a loss, or like I experienced drawdown, but like, bro, I'm gonna be here for the next 30 years. It's like you ebb and flow with wins and losses. It's a never-ending, infinite cycle of wins and losses, and just trying to have, a personal P&L curve that is up and to the right, whichever way, however you can spin it, So like we always kind of say people will like judge us. You're only as good as your last trade, right? And there's a lot of truth to that, but that's how amateurs think about the market, right? Like I would look at a great trader who just took a loss and be like, dude's still like a winner. Like he's still kicking ass. Like everybody takes losses. Everybody has plays go south. Like, but he's tinkering, getting better every single day, refining his methods. He's going to win again, right? So it's not about like there's no beginning date, and like there's a beginning date, but there's no end date unless you just quit markets, right? So for example, with like me, people will be like, oh, like look at like Andy, Andy got cooked, bro. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, bro, look at the entire market, like if the president can't even pump his shitcoin, what are you expecting me to do? Like pump my bags? Like if CZ can't even have Aster hold a pump, like what are you expecting little old me to do? You know what I mean? Like taper your expectations. Look at the market, right? But I'm still holding all of it, right? So people are like, oh, you lost, you were wrong. And I'm like, I'm still here. Like we're going to run it back. You know what I mean? It's not over. Nothing's ever over, right? Is Andy still tradable? Pepe's still tradable? Like we've been winning playing downside, right? So it's like there's this infinite, like curve of wins and losses, and you're just continuing to play, right? It's the never ending game. So like I think people just need to kind of reshape their like how they approach markets and like their view of what people are doing. It's like, dude, some of the best traders I know win like 30 or 40% of their trades, but they cash when they win, like these unrealistic, like I win 80% of my trades. You're faking it. I promise you're faking it. I promise that
What are
person's
the-
lying to you. I
what are the
actually would
traders?
guarantee that they're lying to you. They don't. Like winning half your trades, 50 to 60% is unbelievable. That's usually some like algorithmically driven system, you know? Like it's just about the next trade. Like just find the next trade, take a calculated bet. If you win it, then I guess you're a genius, you know, but like, you know, oh, like he was wrong on an idea or like took a loss, you know? Like, dude, you're an amateur. Like that's just not how people like it's not how real investing works, you know? It's not over. There's always another trade.
Speaking of markets, let me give just my few thoughts. So, first of all, I don't feel like qualified to talk about Monad, like specifically about it as a project, but I have 2 points there. One is I don't think that the space generally needs like more projects to launch, but obviously there could be some innovative one that could do. All right, that's one. And I right now it's definitely not the like time to launch new ones in my opinion, because like the market is in generally, you know, downward momentum, really bad sentiment, and that can keep going for a while, right? That goes the same with stocks. You can have really great fundamental stocks bringing in like value stocks, bringing in revenue months by months. Their stock price can still be going down. And when it comes to the like actual price of Monad, the thing is what I just said, right? So right now I see it had a listing. Right now it is selling. What you do not want to be doing is stepping in right now, but waiting for like market absorption, right? Especially given where the whole space is right now. So generally wait for the sell-off to end, wait for a bottom to form, and then if you find value in it, right, which could be subjective, but you can look at certain metrics, right? Maybe you'll find something, then you might want to step in. So just like generally speaking here. But yeah.
Prometheus, what is this prophecy?
This is a good spot to buy Pepe. Once
Do me a favor on that. Pull a percentage from the all-time high to that box. What is that number?
See what it is. 95. I mean, it's kind
I'm
of in
looking
line.
at as like a comparison to what Doge did last cycle. I think Doge went down like 92 or 93.
Yeah.
I kind of think Pepe is just somewhere between 90 and 95 is probably just like your accumulation range, you know? It won't be the exact same, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anywhere kind of underneath this wick, this region. That's kind of
I think there's
-90%.
going to be some scoops down. And like a lot of altcoins look kind of like this, where they had like the pump, the shoulder, now they're like dropping down. Like
Mhm.
Cast looks the same way. In my view, Hype looks the same way. You know, like there's just a lot of these altcoins that are like, I actually think, yes, percentage wise, they still have ways to go. But I actually think people should be over the next quarter slowly shifting out of the like, we're going to pummel everything to zero into a, okay, a lot of good coins are down 90 to 95%. Time to scoop, you know, like slow transition over the next quarter or so.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that take. I think my time horizon is a little bit longer, but I mean, regardless, we're going to be entering into the point where it's like, you know, you can still be looking for some shorts, but the majority of the meat of the move has probably happened within the next, like I'd say 3 to 6 months at this point. Yeah, I'm just in the camp. It's going to take a little bit longer to bottom, but you know, regardless of the fact, it's, you know, good buying opportunities are going to be presented, and you could have some names bottom, you know, well before others, right? I mean, we've seen that before, and asset classes throughout time in regards to like recessionary periods or bear markets, either one. But to Max's point earlier, like, you know, with from a trading perspective, you know, one of the, you know, better traders that I've ever come across, his most successful month, he had a 38% win rate, right? His most successful month ever, right? 38% win rate, which is, you know, just goes to show you don't need to win every single trade. You just need to manage your risk appropriately, right? That's what it's all about. And then two, right? If we're entering into, you know, if we are expecting, you know, lower prices here going into, like we said, the next, you know, 3 to 6 months, you can increase your purchasing power without even being in the market. You know, you can literally go to cash and potentially increase your purchasing power, you know, in 3 to 6 months by like 50%, even right now. You know, that's the craziest thing. You don't even need to trade these markets. You can literally get out of this market, wait for the lows to happen, and you've increased your purchasing power by doing so, just being in cash and not doing anything, you know? And that's where a lot of people, you know, I mean, will sit in their positions, or they feel like they need to trade these markets. You don't need to do that, right? You can make it easy on yourself. And I'm gonna step away. I'll set an alarm, you know, in April to July of next year, and I'll come back and I'll just deploy my capital, right?
People are afraid to miss the bottom.
Yeah, you know, people are terrified to miss the bottom, absolutely. But also, people right now are terrified to sell their bags that are already down 80% when they could go down another 50%. You know, I mean, for a prime example, if you've been tuning into the spaces with, you know, Wabi and I over the past 3 weeks, we've been talking to a lot of people. A lot of our guests on there have been, you know, along this journey down have been, I'm buying, right? And a lot of people are still in disbelief that this is not a high time frame downtrend, right? And they think that, you know, like Tommy said, they're worried about, you know, missing the bottom, and so they're just going to bid the entire way down, and they're not going to, you know, show their virtue of patience and be able to just wait for the market to show you that, you know, we are primed, or we are like showing a structural bottom get put in. Because I don't think it's going to be a V recovery. You know, I've stated that before. But if I see intervention in the market, like if we get printing or, you know, big intervention by Trump or the Fed, I mean, I'll pivot on a dime. But until then, I'm not going to bet on it until proven otherwise, or until I actually see it. Right? It's one of those, like, it's like Santa Claus. You know, Santa Claus isn't real until you see Santa Claus. You know.
Well,
sorry for
Santa Claus
for
is
10-year-olds.
Santa Claus is definitely real, but I think
yeah.
so is the Fed, and Fed can definitely change.
But you don't bet on it until you see it, right?
The thing is that
Bet on it
speaking
until
of,
you see it.
the thing is that Fed just ended QT today.
And the market's nuked.
Yeah, because obviously these things are not like, you know, they are not like day-to-day
I
things.
know, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, no, I agree that well, we've been in an agreement for a while that the market has, and you said it well, like people, I think people do it to both sides. And I said this before many times, and I think this is where most fuck up. You need to understand that like you're either a perma bull or perma bear. And in that sense, you want to choose to be a perma bull because of the nature of the markets, unless you trade altcoins, of course. But otherwise, if you wanna like swing trade, then you need to be able to accept selling, and when the market presents itself, and I think it has, you know, as we discussed from so many angles. The market changed its structure. It definitely lost the trend in crypto for whatever reasons. And you can argue whether that was like, you know, beginning of November, whether it was half of it. But sometimes during it for sure was. And lots of people just cannot accept that. And I think obviously the same thing happens, and it happens more to the upside, where bears are in the same camp. Some people are perma bears by nature, and so like obviously they will be shouting big right now because the market is going down and there is lots of panic. But they've done the same thing basically. Like they kept shouting down, 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 and they failed to accept the market is going up all the way since the bear market lows. But even so, in October 23, in November 24, even from these recent April lows. So again, there are 4 types of people. You either gonna be a perma bull, buying each dip all the way down. You are either going to be a perma bear, in which you will be always wrong, unless you are talking about altcoins, of course. And if you want to swing trade, then you need to be able to be accepting, the change at logical regions. Like me, I didn't want it to see this outcome. I don't think, rightfully so, facts wise, it was there, but it happened, and you have to take action. And if you cannot do that repeatedly, so then it's better to just stick to be a DCA perma bull buyer, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
Which is, it's not like, I don't think it's that bad. Like people that DCA Bitcoin because that's a bullish, scarce asset by nature, they've outperformed so many people, right? Like anytime there's a big dip in Bitcoin, they just DCA, or they just DCA every single week or every single month. Either it's a price-based DCA or time-based DCA, but they are always bullish, and they just acquire more, and they've outperformed so many traders.
Ooh, I'm DCAing.
That's totally
The
fine
DCA
approach, in my
reward.
opinion, as well. Just don't be a perma bear on an asset such as Bitcoin. That's the worst.
You need to make sure that you maintain a positive outlook, because markets, just generally speaking, do have a positive drift over long periods of time. I mean, we've talked about this concept on this show before, but that's not to say that downside doesn't create huge amounts of opportunity, not just in the downside itself, but obviously, as the other panelists have mentioned, the opportunities to buy assets that you believe are going to be significantly higher at discount prices in crypto as an asset class is kind of like the greatest example of this, because we have these boom bust cycles that make our assets way overvalued, but also simultaneously give us the opportunity to buy assets at prices that, when we look back, are they're inefficient, and equities don't really have that opportunity to the same degree. Majors pull back 20-25% typically at like the worst, at kind of like the highest end of a correction in crypto. Obviously, we just had Bitcoin pull back minus 35% in the span of a few weeks. So, these sort of trends create opportunities, not just as a trader for short-term volatility, but also if you are a long-term investor, right? And especially if you're an altcoin investor.
Yeah.
Prometheus, what are you doing here? Talk to us.
Oh yeah, you like this? So
I don't know. Do I?
I mean, I think it's really important to, because especially as burgers, we love our dollars, but oftentimes a lot of participants, and I mean, I learned this from Jackus, but intermarket analysis, and he has a much better understanding of, can explain it much better than I can, but pairing Bitcoin versus, other assets and other metrics within the market gives a much clearer picture for me personally on higher time frame rotations within the market. So some pairs that I really like to look at are Bitcoin versus stablecoin dominance. So how is money flowing into Bitcoin versus stablecoins? I also look at Bitcoin versus or BTC JPY. Obviously, the in-carry trade is a big proponent of risk on markets and liquidity within crypto, and so if we're losing structural support in BTC JPY, this is our prime indicator for risk on conditions. And if we're losing our bullish market structure and our prime risk on indicator, we're clearly high time frame in a downtrend. And you need to wait until, once we see structural support within this pair, then you can start to talk about liquidity, rotating back into Bitcoin, same for BTC Euro. The Euro makes up 57% of the Dixie, I believe. So it's, in relation
57, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, 57. So if we're looking at, BTC Euro, it's obviously, the Euro is one of the dominating, world currencies, and it's important to understand, European flows in regards to crypto and Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin stablecoin, dominance back to that, what happens when we, lose structural support on this, we are seeing heavy flows back into stablecoins. And until you see this pair really base out, and what I'm expecting is, you had your distribution and your divergence, and I discussed this with the Discord and how we play divergences and distributions. You're going to be retesting at minimum your high time frame, extreme demand point on bearish divergences, and that means that you're most likely going to be coming back down, underneath this low at 130 billion. And this will probably be a good place to bid, where you'll see, demand step back within the market, value will build here, and this will be a fantastic opportunity to build. And until you see these pairs really base out and form structural lows, I think that people need to be very mindful that these pairs are signaling there's a lot more room to the downside than some may think.
I like that, Prometheus, and I like that you started to use stuff like BTC JPY. And guess what? Lots of people keep asking me, like, why would you use the pair of BTC JPY? It makes no sense. And I say, like, it makes no sense to be using just the USD chart, from my point of view. Or like, you're limiting your scope of view. Everyone up to their likings.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of signal within these, because BTC USD, for instance, could be really convoluted, and it can be really messy, and there, maybe isn't that much signal in it, and if I'm looking at BTC USD and I'm not getting a ton of signal, well, I'll just jump on over to all these other charts, and it'll help paint a much clearer picture for, broader market direction. And I mean, these are the alpha tickers. Like, if you want to be able to have a high time frame understanding on direction and supply and demand, where we might bounce, our sellers in control, our buyers in control, look at stablecoin dominance, look at BTC versus stablecoin dominance, look at BTC JPY, BTC, Euro, look at USD JPY, look at, this is the VXN versus the VIX, but it's, this describes liquidity between risk on and risk off assets. It's just able to, paints a clear picture for, where the market is at.
What do we think about USD JPY here?
I mean, this thing wants to go so much higher. I mean, you got to be kind of careful here. Is this a breakout or is this distribution? Like, that's the real question. I would be more so in the camp that this is probably leading towards what I believe is going to be a breakout higher, right? You are at arguably, range highs, right? Or you retested range highs, you had your initial swing fail at them. What's going on with StreamYard?
Hey, Prometheus, I think you're lagging quite a bit.
Yeah. I was wondering if it's me.
I think it's Prometheus.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We have about 4 inches of snow on the ground, so we're starting to. That might be why. I'll let you guys take it over.
Well, I actually think we're at time right now. We're at the 80-minute mark, so I think this is probably actually where we'll cut it for today.
For sure. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in to Market Check. We had a full panel today. We're also going to have a full panel this afternoon for Market Talk. So just real quick, some timing of our programming throughout the week. Market Check goes live Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday with a typical start time around 11:15 to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we also have Market Talk hosted by the legendary King Wabi. Obviously, this is a YouTube show. Market Talk is an X Spaces hosted through the Because Bitcoin account as well as King Wabi's account. So make sure to stay following and subscribed to both of those accounts so you can be notified not just when we schedule those spaces, but of course also when we go live. There are going to be a lot of team members on those afternoon calls going forward. So, if you are looking for more market analysis throughout the week in the afternoon, or I guess if you're European and it will be very late at night, tune in for Market Talk. We will wrap up the day and see how the market, and obviously give some commentary as far as how the market closed after Market Check. But that's pretty much it from us, guys. I will say one thing before we officially leave. If you are looking for some signal on lower time frames, we do have some tools to be able to help you do that, right? Starting with the Volume Fusion Pro Discord. All you have to do is sign up for Blowfin using our referral link. You'll be given access to strategies that originate from Max's Volume Fusion Pro on some of your favorite tickers: Solana, Pepe, Dogecoin. If you're looking for, hourly signals on, they're not going to be fired off every hour, but they're based on hourly readings. Check out that Discord, guys. If you are trying to find some signal throughout the noise in this lower time frame price action, we do have that available. But thank you guys for tuning in. That concludes Monday's episode of Market Check. Like I said, we'll be back for another episode on Wednesday. But until then, guys, thank you again, as always. And of course, stay safe.
Tired of outdated trading tools, confused charts, dozens of tabs, endless stress? You're not alone. Introducing BB Terminal, your all-in-one command center for crypto trading. Track your portfolio, monitor the markets, stay ahead, all in one place. From chaos to clarity, from struggle to success. BB Terminal.